Welcome back, golf fans. Chris and Dane here to bring you the Jaeger Bombs Fantasy Sports Weekly PGA Preview video. This week, the PGA Tour heads to La Quinta, California to kick off the Pro-Am and multi-course rotation season. But before we get into this week, Dane, how are you doing?
Doing good. Ready for another week. Ready to shake off last week and just move on.
Yeah, right. Last week wasn't that great. Didn't win any GPPs, that's for sure. Couple things that I got wrong right off the bat. I was a little heavier on the stars and scrubs than you were last week, and that just failed big time. I had Tom Kim and Sung Jae. They both missed the cut. Kim, not so bad. He gained 4.3 strokes ball striking, but ended up losing over 6 putting to lead to his first missed cut on tour. Even in the mid-tier builds, I bet you about 40%, 30 to 40% were mid-tier builds, kind of like a balanced build, I guess you could say. Harmon, T32, KH Lee, T28, Tom Hoagie, T41, Corey Connors at a T12, but still, he wasn't making a ton of birdies there either, so there wasn't a whole lot of fantasy scoring. The one that hurt the most, though, was Keith Mitchell. Definitely hurt me. Going after Friday was over, I knew he was going to miss the cut. I was sitting 12th in the 20 max contest, sitting real good going into the weekend, it looked like. But that missed cut ended up dragging me down. I ended up just being cashing with that one. But a couple things that I got right. Taylor Montgomery was 4th in my rankings. He continued to crush with his 7th top 15 finish in 8 events this season. Has still not missed a cut. Hope I don't jinx that here like we did Tom Kim last week. I also started playing a lot more Showdown last week as well, and that was one thing that went really good for me. I ended up cashing in 3 or 4 rounds. What I've been doing is going a $5 double up and then a $1 single entry GPP, just playing one lineup every day. Something that I've been concentrated on is maybe looking at guys who are ball striking, maybe tee to green as a whole really well, maybe putting below their baselines for the event that can maybe pick up some strokes there and have a good round. So that's one thing I've been paying attention to the most. This week's going to be a little bit different. We've got a 3-course rotation, so I really like playing Showdown. We're going to talk about that here in a bit as well. So yeah, that's a couple things that I got right there. So overall, it was it lost money on the 20 max, $60 in, $40 out. But Showdown was good, made some of that back. But overall, I'm with you. Let's move on to the American Express this week.
Yeah. So before we move on, is my video really laggy to you? Or
yeah, a little bit, like your mouth moving and the sound that's coming off of that is a little bit lagging together. Okay. So
what I'll do is I'll let you go on into the first part of next week, and I'll hop right out and back in.
That sounds good. See you in a minute.
All right.
So this week's show, once again, brought to you by Fanshare Sports. At Fanshare, what we do is we curate the PGA content from around the industry, everything from articles to YouTube videos to podcasts to tweets, Facebook and Instagram posts, that sort of thing. We build a course with course suitability rankings, research tools, strokes gain data, DraftKings and FanDuel points projections, customizable lineup optimizer, and much more. If you're new to Fanshare, you can check it out. Sign up with promo code Jaeger, that's Jager, and get 20% off your subscription. A couple things I wanted to show you with Fanshare here. We didn't go over last week. This is something you can actually access for free. You can head over to fansharesports.com and you can click on the PGA and go into newsfeed. It's going to see some trending players that are buzzing. You can see their form and course history here. You can see trending topics. This would be like your stats that are trending across the articles that we curate throughout the week. These are some links. And then if you want to see all of the articles, everything that we curate each week, where we get all of the tags from, you can scroll down in that newsfeed and you can see the links to all the articles around the industry that we've gone through so far this week. So then the other thing that I do with my research each and every week is I then head over to Fanshare Pro. A couple things that we can do here. First of all, if you just click on current event, the first thing that you're going to see is all the players in the field, their course form, their course history, FanDuel and DK pricing, statistics in here from the last 3 events, official world golf ranking, all that sort of info. What I do for research then is I head over to research. So if I'm looking for research for this specific event, what I like to do is go aggregate by events, go up to select tournament, and we are the American Express the last 3 years. So I want to grab, and I'm holding my shift button down, and I'm just highlighting these last 3 American Express tournaments. I'm also going to come down here and check off the current field, and all that is doing is going to include the results with just the players that are in this week's field. Apply that filter, we can now look at average DraftKings scoring for those players. So Lee Hodges, one event, had 127.5 DraftKings points. He made the cut there, obviously. Patrick Cantlay's played here twice over the last 3 years. He's averaged 122.5 DraftKings points. You can see their projected ownership. So if you start coming by single tournaments here, it is one thing that you can do is you can actually go back and you can see their projected ownership as well as their actual ownership for those events as well. That's some of the research things I do with Fancier. So head over to fanciersports.com today. Use promo code Jaeger, get 20% off. And join us, using these research tools and lineup optimizers each and every week as we try and break that down. So into this week, we've got the, like I said, the first multi-course rotation of the season, or of the 2023 season here. So what happens is all players will play one round on each of the La Quinta Country Club, Nicklaus Tournament course, and the PGA West Stadium course, which is the host course here. That means the top 65 in ties, the cut will be made after Saturday's third round, and those remaining players that make the cut will play on the stadium course. So that stadium course for the players that make the cut will be played twice and used twice, and then La Quinta and Nicklaus once each for each player in the field prior to the cut. Note that there's only shot link data on the stadium course. It's very important when researching past results, as you're only going to get strokes gain data 1 to 2 rounds tops per player, depending if they make the cut or not per event. Also note that in 2021, the event was played at just the stadium course and Nicklaus course, and had a 2-day cut. So the cut was after Friday in that event. So you could maybe see some differences there. And if you're wondering why, that is why. The combination of these 3 courses, La Quinta, Nicklaus course, and the Pete Dye Stadium course, have been used going back to 2016. So that's what I've included when looking at course history over here on the sheet here this week. So keep that in mind. Dane is back, so I'm just going to finish this up, and I'm going to turn it over to him. I've got some questions for him in terms of the course this week. But a couple more notes here. If you're playing Showdown and looking for maybe a slight edge, one thing I want to look at is course information here. So you got the stadium course, Nicklaus Tournament course, and La Quinta. They've all played quite easy over the years. As you can see here, they're all fairly short, under 7,200 yards, right around that 7,100 yard mark. La Quinta, though, when looking at actual scoring over the last 3 years, La Quinta has actually been close to a full yard easier than the other 2 courses in 2 of the 3 years. Looking at the last 3 years, because obviously in 2021, La Quinta was not used, but the last 2 times La Quinta was used, it played more than a stroke easier here and almost a stroke easier last year. So that's one thing to look at. I'll be concentrating on my La Quinta guys for probably at least 4 spots in my Showdown lineups each and every day of the first 3 rounds. You can see that on the sheet here this week as well. I've added course designation, LQ for La Quinta, NT for the Nicklaus Tournament course, and then ST for the stadium course, as well as start times. And that kind of leads us into weather here, Dane. We've got a pretty nice week, just week after week here, where there's just no wind in the forecast. Thursday and Friday, 3 to 4 miles an hour of wind. Now, it's going to be a little bit cooler this week than normal, especially in those early mornings. So the ball's not going to fly as far early in the morning. So if you can maybe get guys that aren't out there early in the mornings, that'd be great if you're looking at possibly playing some Showdowns and then La Quinta, like I said. But for the most part here, we're looking at some excellent weather. So with kind of what we looked at in terms of stats, it's really hard to narrow it down because we are working with 3 courses this week. So I generally like to keep my stats model pretty simple. And I like to go with ball striking. And I'm going to add this in here as I'm looking at this. So usually like a little bit more on the approach side of things when looking at ball striking this week. I like to fit some strokes gain putting in there. The other note that I have here is that the grass is kind of unique for this event. It's listed as Bermuda, but the Bermuda is dormant. That's the word I'm looking for. You can see a lot of this dormant grass in California courses this time of year. So the Bermuda grass on the green is dormant. So what they do is they overseed it with a POA, but it does not play like a regular POA that we're used to. So it's kind of like a one-off. So I'm not including anything in my model this week in terms of putting splits. Par 4 and par 5 scoring in there. Mid-range proximity is what I'm mostly looking for. And then guys that are just going to make birdies and score, because the winning score since 2016 has been minus 20 every single year. Is there anything different that you're looking at, Dane, from a stats perspective or from an overall course perspective that I've gone over that you're maybe looking at this week because of the course rotation?
No, I think you hit it right on. I think you feel the same way. I kind of dislike the course rotation. Maybe I'm putting
Yeah.
words in your mouth, but it is good, really good for showdown. Like you said, I definitely agree with you there. Target the La Quinta guys, definitely heavier in those, so it does provide some edge there. But as far as full week, you got the three days before the cut, the long rounds. We got a lot of this coming up, so just be ready for it in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But as far as stats, I completely agree. I'm keeping it high level, looking for guys who are good, off the tee and with approach, and then are scoring a lot too, because you're going to need a lot of birdies at a place like this when you have no weather in the forecast, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. And before we get into the players here, if you're new to Jagerbomb's Fantasy Sports and maybe want to get a copy of the cheat sheet, some of the stuff that you've seen here, we've got picks, rankings, showdown information, live strokes gain data throughout the tournament, everything right from start of the week to the end. We got you covered over at Jagerbomb's Fantasy Sports, patreon.com/Jagerbombs. You can sign up today, $10 American, $14.50 Canadian for 1 month, or $20 American for all sports. And these are the sports we're currently covering: UFC, PGA, NBA, NASCAR's coming back soon. Tennis is in full swing. We've got the Australian Open on right now. Make sure to go check that out as well. MLB will be coming back in a few months. We got college basketball going on, NFL closing things out with the playoffs right now, soccer going on, NHL in full swing, and there is your $29 Canadian or $20 American for all of those sports under one. You get our cheat sheet, our Discord chat, our picks, rankings, our coaches. We're up to 4 coaches for all those sports here now as well. So with that, what we're going to do here is we're going to dive right into the event here, and we're going to talk about some of our top plays, some of our top strategies. I think this is another week, Dane, with the field being so strong here at this event, where we've got a lot of options here. The lower ranges is nice as well. We also get 3 rounds guaranteed out of all the players, so it's not quite a no-cut event, but we do get that extra round. So I think a Stars and Scrubs is going to be very, very popular this week. I think there's opportunity where, going from the 9K and up, you can almost fit 2 to 3 guys, depending on who you're choosing here. I think you can fit 2 to 3 of them, or at least 2 guys in this, I would even say 9,500 and up, from Tom Kim to Rahm. Fit 2 of those guys together very, very comfortably, and then still grab someone in the high 7s, low 8s, and then maybe only have to grab one guy down in that 6K range. What's your kind of feel at the start of the week here in terms of the best build, optimal builds?
I think the way I'm leaning right now is definitely Stars and Scrubs, like you said, can definitely fit these guys in, as long as you just take a couple shots at the bottom, and you're going to see guys at the bottom of pricing pop up here and there at this place. A birdie fest kind of lends itself to that. They automatically are getting the 3 rounds instead of the cut after 2. So I think we can definitely see them pop up. And if that happens, you have such a strong field at the top that once you kind of cross the 9K mark, it's quite a big drop off to me. So if I can play 2 or even 3 of those guys in a lineup, I'm going to try to do it this week.
Yep. Sounds like we're kind of on the same page here. And originally I was looking at, well, maybe I'll go balance because I can fit a lot of these guys in. I was building my cash lineup out first, but then I started, just building out that balanced lineup and seeing how far I could stretch it and still feel comfortable. And yeah, it was, it was a really nice build, grabbing like one of Rahm or Scheffler up there at the top, pairing him with someone in the low 9K range, just so comfortable. So I'm with you there for sure. I think the balance build probably by the end of the week is going to be something that if you try and jam 4 or 5, or even just try and stick in this 9,500 to low 7K range and just try and stick in there, I think that might be a little bit lower owned build this week. But I know I'm going to have a little bit of both. Is kind of what I've been doing early in the season, kind of been playing around with it. But what I think I'm going to do here is probably at least, I think, a 70-30 split in terms of Stars and Scrubs for me versus the balance build this week. So in the top tier, I'm just going to run off my 3 favorites here, just kind of looking at the very, very top here. Jon Rahm and Scheffler are very, very close to me. I'm pretty close to having a split on those 2 guys. I think Rahm's probably going to end up being a little bit more popular, and it's kind of come down in my personal exposure to where the ownership lands by the end of the week, which I believe that Scottie Scheffler is going to once again We talked about him at the Century Tournament Champions being a leverage play. I think he's going to be a leverage play again by the time we get to the end of the week. And I'm not worried
I don't understand how he's a leverage play every single week. It's crazy, the people that just
the number 2 player in the world.
And you not to want to play him. Yeah.
And it's almost like they're looking I don't get it from multiple standpoints because, one, if you're looking at the results have been there. T7 at the Century, T9 at the Houston Open, T3 at the Mayakoba. CJ Cup was pretty terrible, T45, but then T2 at the Tour Championship, T3 at the BMW. He's doing all this while losing 2 to 4 strokes per event putting.
Yeah.
The ball striking and around the green, the tee to green game is absolutely elite, where what we expect from him. He gained 2.2 strokes putting at the Century. The ball striking was a little bit off. Once he gets it all together, he's going to run away with some of these tournaments. I think he's probably due for 2 to 3 wins this year. And if he's going to keep continuing to be low owned, probably not half the ownership of Rahm, but it could be close. Especially with Finau right below him is the other guy. I've kind of targeting those top 3 guys. Rahm and Scheffler are my favorite. Scheffler would be my favorite right now because of the leverage. Finau I also like as well. He kind of fits everything we're looking for. So it's those 3 for me, and I'd rank them Scheffler, Rahm, Finau.
Yeah, so for me, I think Rahm currently, if the gap gets a little wider, I think I'll go a little heavier on Scotty. But as of now, I have Rahm and then Scheffler. But I'm definitely playing both. I'm going to mix and match. You could even play both of them together. They've still continued this pricing where they don't price anybody above 11K. So I think
easily.
I haven't played around with it, but I think you can definitely do it. Yeah, 7,100 left. Like we talked about, you can dip down into the 6K range, play another low 7 guy, and you could even potentially get another 8K player in that lineup. So that's definitely something that I may take a look at in a few builds there. But after that, my problem currently is that I like all of these 10K guys minus Xander, who I'm a little lower on just with the unknowns. But Finau's been playing very well. He's played well here in the past as well. Cantlay plays really well at these type of events, I feel like, every single year. Pebble Beach at the Pro-Am, he plays pretty well. He's been second ninth here. Where he was off at Century was tee to green, still putted pretty well. 16th there, mid-pack. Maybe he shook some rust off. So currently the way I'm ranking them is Rahm, Scotty, Cantlay, then Finau. I need to probably cut one of those out at least when I'm building. I don't think I want to mix and match all those guys. I want to be well overweight on a couple of them for sure.
I like that. Out of those 5 guys that are 10K and over on DK, the reason I'm cut out Cantlay and Schauffele, one, you mentioned it, Schauffele, I'm still concerned. We've got more information than we did last time, his last event, because he's now withdrew from event. He's talked about the back issue. Says it's good and he's going to go, that he's allowed to go. He doesn't have great history here with the back problem. That made it an easy elimination of him. And then Cantlay, you said he struggled tee to green. I'm concerned about him changing his whole bag out from Titleist. That's something that I maybe wasn't concerned about as much at, what was it? Was it the Century? I wasn't too concerned about it at that point, but seeing how he played, just with the amount of top guys here that are playing well, have good course history here, fit the stats model, check all the boxes. It makes it easy because Cantlay and Schauffele don't exactly check all those boxes. I'm going to wait and see approach with both of those guys, which obviously is going to give me more exposure to Finau, Scheffler, and Rahm, which is kind of like what we just discussed. That's kind of the way I broke it down because I don't want exposure to all 5 of them. I only want exposure to 2 heavily. And then Finau is like my 3rd guy that I'm going to kind of mix in just so I have a little bit of a split exposure to that top tier.
Yeah, I hear you. I might lower myself on Cantlay by Wednesday. I think that those are all really good points. And if you look back round by round at Century, his off the tee did get better over the weekend. He lost 2 strokes both the first 2 days. and then gained over 1.5 both days on the weekend. But his approach was kind of progressively got worse. He gained half a shot on Thursday, flat on Friday, lost half a stroke, and then lost 1.5 on Sunday. So definitely looks like he's searching a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the 9K range, we have got, what do we got here? 6-8 players. This is a range I've kind of, I don't want to say skipped over for the most part, but there's really only, well, again, in this range, there's 3 guys I'm looking at, so I'm kind of Xing out a few guys. First of all, it stands out, Brian Harman. I was on him last week. The current form has been there. He kind of let us down the T32 last week, but if that's going to be his down week where he lets us down, I think that's fine. I think he can get back on it this week in terms of form because he comes back. He's been top 10s both of his last 2 trips here, and he's been top 25 in 6 of 7 trips to this event where those 3 courses have hosted, so I really like that. Siwoo, I don't know how you don't go back on Siwoo. He's won here before. He won last week. He's got good course history overall. He hits on everything. So it's kind of Harman and Siwoo there as my main guys. And then the 2 that I will use as maybe pivot guys in GPP to kind of fill out this range. Cameron Young, I like a lot. He's got some good form coming in. And then Tom Kim. We talked about him coming in. I think we may get some leverage there with him after he let down everyone last week at very high at higher ownership. So I think that ownership comes down this week. The prices come down. Like I said, he gained about 4.5 strokes ball striking last week while losing 6 putting. That was by far an outlier putting performance from him from what we've seen so far. And I think this is an event where he gets back on the wagon, but possibly some lower ownership. So I like maybe grabbing some of him. And then, like I said, Cam Young here has also got some really good form coming in. So that's kind of how I'm breaking down the 9K range.
Yeah, so I like a lot of guys in here actually. So the cuts are going to be tough come Wednesday night. But I got a couple talking points on 2 of these guys when I get to them. But ranking out first for me in the model, and a lot of this is because of how good his stats were, coming toward the end of the year, is Tom Kim. And I think at least what we're showing right now on FanShare is that he is going to get a dip in ownership. And if we get that and this price discount, I know it's a tougher field, but if he's going to be 10% or under, I'm perfectly fine going right back to him. We've seen this happen before, actually, with him. He lost 6 strokes putting at the BMW to finish out his playoff run. He comes back about a month later at the Shriners and wins, gaining 6 strokes putting.
Yep.
So maybe we follow that up again. But he's had some major outliers on the greens in both type ways. I mean,
and that's what we want for GPP, right?
Yeah,
we want elite ball strikers that have spike putting rounds. Those guys are perfect for GPP.
Yeah, we've talked about this, for years too, about this flop lag of going right back to people who we were heavy on and not letting things dissuade us from that. And I think this is a very good opportunity. You mentioned Brian Harman. It looks like he's coming in at least, with the first run of ownership. I know a lot can change. I think he will get pushed up some, but I think he is coming in a little bit lower on than I would have expected. And maybe if people, same type of thing, get scared off by a subpar, 32nd when people were expecting more last week, maybe we can go back there. I think he's a very good play. Cam Young, you mentioned, I like his upside in a birdie fest. And then on the fringe for me, Zalatoris, I'm not sure what you think of him, but he always scares me to play in birdie fest, but he did look pretty good, better than I would have expected in his first tournament back, everywhere except on approach. And that's going to come back around. He clawed out an 11th, putted well, good off the tee, just lost 2 strokes on approach, which he has not done very often at all. So he's on the fringe for me right now. And then the one other talking point that I wanted to go with you about was Siwoo. So I really do like going back to Siwoo again. See no holes in going back to him. This is more I wanted to ask you about more for season long prospects on him. So we know this military service has got to be coming up, right? I mean, I think it's by the time he's 28, he's got to do it, and he turns 28 later this summer, I believe, unless I looked at that wrong. Maybe he turns
I think
27
you're right.
this summer, but I was trying to read up on that because I've been expecting, that he's going to do it the last 2 years, and I know everybody talked about the last chance was the Olympics. He didn't get it done there, but I found an article from late in the fall about there's some. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is. It was like the Asian Games or something like that. That it's 2-man teams, from my understanding, that each country can put forth, and looks like it was supposed to be last fall, and they moved that to this fall, and they may be reopening qualification as well, which is going to thrust in guys like Tom Kim, KH Lee, maybe even if he continues to play well. But do you think that gives more and more motivation to keep pushing on for guys like Siwoo and Tom Kim, Sung Jae, all those guys? Because this is Sung Jae and Siwoo are getting, or at least Siwoo is getting right there, and I think he could continue to push on strong through the end of this year and try to get qualified for that opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm with you there with that kind of motivation for sure with him. I'm not expecting him to gain another. Well, it's two events in a row now. He ended last year and started this year gaining 8 strokes on approach, so that is awesome to see with his iron game. The putting wasn't great. He only gained 0.9 strokes. Gained less than about a quarter of a stroke per round last week. So I mean, he didn't even need a spike round of putting to get there. So I mean, even if he starts losing, let's say, or maybe he doesn't gain, was what I'm trying to say. He doesn't gain 8 strokes on approach. He maybe only gains 4 or 5 strokes on approach. But if he finds that spike round putting again, which we've seen from him, he's gained 2, 4, on the backs of losing 5, 12. So he's another one of those very, very up and down putters. But as long as the ball striking's there, and it really is there in terms of the irons right now, when he even putts field average, he's in contention. So here I'm definitely going to be back on Siwoo, and I don't know where his ownership's going to fall. Sometimes you get the people that don't want to tail the guy that just won. I don't know where that comes from. But at 9,200 at this event that he's done good at, 2 years ago and 11th last year, coming off a win, feeling it with those irons for sure. I don't know how we can stay away from Siwoo Kim unless he was somehow going to blow up to be 30-40% owned, which I don't think he comes close to that. That's maybe where I'd start trying to fade him. But other than that, no, I'm on board. As for Zalatoris, that's the guy this week that scares me. Just like Morikawa at the Century Tournament Champions that I faded, I'm fading Zalatoris this week, mainly because I'm really keyed in on those top guys in the Stars and Scrubs build. So I'm kind of skipping over this range quite a bit and coming down to the low 9s and 8Ks and high 7s to get my third entry into that Stars and Scrubs build. So Zalatoris is the guy that I'm skipping and fading that scares me the most because he finished 6th here last year. He's got some good form coming in. So, yeah, that's what scares me the most here this week. So, I don't know if I'll end up getting some exposure, but right now I'm off as Zalatoris.
Yeah, and we can move on down into the 8K range. And there's, as for all the guys that I had interest in up above, it really drops off to me. There's only 2 guys right now that I have on my sheet highlighted that I like. And it's Taylor Montgomery, and man, he is one that I cannot figure out because he lost 4.5 putting or on approach last week, and just bounced right back to his gaining 6 on the greens. I mean,
he was amazing putting. Oh my gosh,
continuously doing this. So I don't
draining
know
20 and 30 footers like it's just like it's $1 million a putt or something. It's crazy.
And this is a putting. What was it John Rahm said last year? This is where
I just watched that on Twitter right before we came on. Something about an effing putting contest.
Yeah, so if it is, I would take my chances with this guy. So I don't know how I stay away from him. A lot of my builds are going to be probably grabbing one of those 10K guys and then grabbing one of these 9 or like a Taylor Montgomery. And then if I can jam another one in there as well, I'm going to try to do that. So most of my builds are probably not going to be 210K plus. It's going to be probably 110, 1 or 2 9K, upper 8, and then drop down. But the only other guy for me, and I'm probably going to have a lot of them again, is KH Lee. Just can't get away from this guy, 8,300. I do think he gets a little, bump in ownership, which is the only thing that, or as of now, he's showing quite a bump in ownership, up closer to 20. But he was good again on approach last week. Just playing really solid overall and still a fair price to me.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, this range I really like. I'm with you on Taylor Montgomery. 7 top 15 finishes in his first 8 events on tour, made the cut in all 8. Amazing putter, which obviously, like we've seen last week, has absolutely saved his poor iron game. And I think a reason why he was hitting some greens, like the greens in regulation wasn't the problem. He just was leaving himself such long putts. Well, he was draining those long putts over and over. Every time they flashed to him, it seemed like he had a 20 to 30 foot putt that he was dropping in the hole. It was absolutely amazing. I was on Cam Davis last week for my one and done. I was on him for quite a bit of exposure in DFS. He let us down with a T32, but it wasn't really that bad. He gained over 7 strokes. Ball striking, 4.5 off the tee, 2.9 on approach. It was around the green and putt, and he lost 3 putting. That's where it went off the rails for him, but he's only lost more than 2 strokes putting one other time since the Houston Open in November of 2021. So that's a long stretch. He's gained strokes in probably, I'm not going to sit here and count them, but it looks like about 14 out of 20 events, something like that. So a really good percentage. He's gaining strokes, a really good putter. So I see a bounce back. The ball striking is good. I see a bounce back in the putting. His history here, I believe he played here last year. No, 2021. It was when it was no La Quinta in the rotation. It was just Nicholas in the stadium, but he finished T3. So good here on the stadium course, the Pete Dye course. So I definitely like those two at the top of the 8K range. I'm close on Putnam. He just seems to be putting like way over his freaking head right now. But he comes to a course where he's got top 25s and 405, made the cut. T34 is his worst finish here, coming off a T4 last week. He's been making a ton of cuts this season in general, every single cut going all the way back to, the Memorial last June. So he's been absolutely hot. Gained 10.5 strokes putting. I'm not sure if I'm there yet, but he's right on the fringe for me. Probably the guy I'm going to use so I don't get like 60% exposure to Montgomery or Davis. Probably going to have some putting him in there. And then Tom Hoagie. I'm going to be betting him outright. This is the best number we've had on him in a few weeks. Top 10s, actually 6th or better in 2 of his last 3 events here. He wasn't great last week with his finish. I think we're going to get a little bit lower ownership than we've seen on him, although look at his tags. He's number 2 overall, so I could be out to lunch there. It's the around the green game that's been absolutely terrible. He's lost 3.7 and 4.2 strokes, but he's gained over 15 strokes on approach the last 2 events, and he's gained strokes putting in those 2 events. So as long as he's not leaving himself in the bunkers and around the green, I think we've got a solid ball striking player here who's got course history. So he's the other guy that I'm going to. And then Adam Hadwin. I don't think I can get away from the Canadian here. T32 or better. The last 2 trips here weren't great, T32 and T25, but he's got 6th or better from 2016 to 2019. Excellent course history. And then, just looking at his form coming into this event right now, this is his first event this year, but in the past, he's come into this as his first event of the year. So I'm not concerned about that, the long break for him. He was T7 the last time we seen him at the Houston Open. He hasn't missed a cut going back to the John Deere in July. So very solid, good putter, good with the irons. The irons are in, and he's got really good course history. So that's kind of how I'm wrapping up the 8K range. I'll let you kind of dive into the 7K range, which takes us what do we got here? We got Justin Rose down to all the way down to Bo Hostler. So we've got quite a big range here in the 7Ks. How are you looking at?
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks, I guess, at the top. You got Day and Fowler, first time we're seeing them in a while. Not sure how you feel about them, but I think I could get possibly behind actually taking a chance on a guy like Ricky, who was decent in the fall. He actually played well at the CJ Cup probably his best tee to green performance in a very long time, but lost 7 strokes putting there to end the year. So not really sure, or nobody's sure where his game's at, but I could at under 8K in this field where it's very top heavy. And once you get down here, it gets a little thin. But I could see going back to a guy like him. Thomas Dietrich rates out pretty well for me.
Same here.
Only question mark would be about the fact that he hasn't played since before Christmas, but he did play on the DP World Tour back in early November, and was it's not loading for me.
He was T68 at that Bank Mauritius Open.
And that was in December, right before Christmas, and then he was T13 in November there.
Yeah, at the Ned Bank Golf.
So he had, he had like a month off after that one, and then he came back and played the Afro-Asia Bank or whatever that is right before Christmas. So I'm willing to give him a pass on that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was playing very well to the end of the fall, second at Bermuda, 15th at Mayakoba. So
excellent on par fours.
Yeah, rating out very well for me, and pretty low on currently too.
Yep.
Chris Kirk, he played very well last week, but doesn't have the best history here. But I could maybe take a shot on him. Will Gordon is a guy that's played decent, not great with approach or putting, just kind of flat the last little bit, but he's been, as always, very good off the tee. I could get behind him as well at 74. And then were you going all the way down to 7?
Yeah, right down to 7K.
Yeah, so, and this is, again, just a first look, just these couple of guys that stick out to me. Lipsky was one that I actually got right last week. He was popping as a top, guy in my top 10 of my model, actually, with the leverage and value. So was on him, and I think I can go right back at pretty much the same price. He will get a bump in ownership for sure with last week, but I think you can go there. Nick Taylor is the last guy that I'll mention that pretty low ownership currently showing. Plays here every year, not the greatest history, but makes cuts and has a lot of experience here. Was 7th his last time out. So I think you can definitely go to Nick Taylor down there. And he was doing a lot of his gaining on approach last week, and then also putted pretty well as well, which was nice to see.
Yes. So
that'll be the Canadian I get behind.
That's your Canadian this week?
Yeah.
Back up to the top of that range. It's kind of funny putting all three of these guys in the same price tier right beside each other. 1, 2, 3, and Rose Day and Fowler. You got the veterans there. I'm currently not on any of those three. If I was on any of them, it would probably be Jason Day. The model actually likes all three of them to make the cut here, all ranked 35th or better. But for me, it would be Jason Day if picking one. Keith Mitchell, like I said, he broke my heart last week. I had a lineup that looked like it could probably contend for at least top 10 in the GPP. And he was the 1 out of 6 that didn't make the cut, unfortunately. Don't know if I'm going to go back to him. He's probably going to be someone that's going to be low owned if you're looking for maybe a GPP pivot there. A couple guys that really stand out to me. Ben Griffin down near the bottom. He's been playing excellent. He missed the cut at the Fortinet Championship to open the year on and he closed out his KFT Championship with a missed cut and like 5 straight missed cuts. So things weren't looking good. Missed the cut in his first event, like I said, at the Fortinet Championship. But then he went T24 at the Sanderson, T60 at the Shriners, T3 at the Bermuda, and T59. So a little bit up and down, but he was making the cut to close out the 2022 portion of the season. And then T16 at the Houston Open, T29 at the RSM. And then wondering how that was going to carry over into this year, he went to the Sony Open last week. He gained over 4 strokes ball striking, 3.8 putting, and finished T12. So he's definitely a guy that is on my list, 26 on my model. This is his first time to this event, but I'm taking that form and that low price and riding that hot ball striking that he's got going on. He had a hot putter last week. Steven Jager's interesting. The approach shots, the iron game is what really gets me, but he's been excellent everywhere else. Off the tee, he's been good. Around the green and putting, he's been very good. So once he's kind of slowly finding those irons, he lost less than a stroke last week finally. So if he can end up gaining some strokes like he did at the Wyndham or the Rocket Mortgage back in the late summer there, when he finished T5 and T13 at the Rocket Mortgage and Wyndham, I think that's maybe something kind of his upside would be like a top 15, top 10 at these prices. That's something I'm willing to take a shot on. A guy that's been talked about quite a bit here is Callum Tarrant around the industry. He hasn't played since the fall, but he finished T2 at the RSM. That's the last time we've seen him. T26 at the Houston. The RSM, at both of those events together, he gained a stroke in every single strokes gain area and 5.7 on approach at the RSM. So he's someone that kind of stands out to me a little bit. Again, I'm like you, where early Tuesday here, I'm still kind of going over the ownerships and still kind of going things over and kind of making my first player pool. And then going into Tuesday night here and into Wednesday morning in the afternoon, that's where I really narrow my player pool down to 15 to 20 for my 20 max. So those are a few guys that stand out to me. I had a question for you on one of these guys here. Oh, I had a note here just before we came on the show. Joel Damon was a popular around the industry, but he has withdrawn from the event. So make sure not to get him in your lineups. Luke List. I never get Luke List right, so I'm not chasing those back-to-back top 25s here in that T11 in his last outing. I'm not chasing that. I know some people definitely will be. But other than that, that's kind of the way I'm looking at this range in 7K. Now, we talked a lot about stars and scrubs, maybe getting two of these guys in the top tier, like maybe even jamming Rahm and Scheffler. So this is where that lineup construction comes in. Dane, who are some of these guys in the sub 7K range that you're willing to go to possibly jam in Scheffler and Rahm?
Yeah, so two guys that are actually the only ones that I have in this initial pool. I mentioned to you yesterday I'm a little behind to get started on the week, but the two guys that popped off right off were a guy we mentioned on the show last week, Kevin Yu, a guy that we were also on during the fall swing some, and you know he wasn't very good on approach last week. Putted well, good off the tee, 21st. I think though at 6,900 you can go back there. It's his first appearance here. Sam Ryder, another one of those guys that has played here the last 5 years. Solid results. Looks like he's made the cut every single year. Nothing, that jumps off the board, but he's 6,800, popping out as a good leverage play because he's at least what we have right now is 150 to 1 and $6,800. I think that's pretty good value there. Other guys, it's dropping down. Is there anybody that really sticks out to you? Because
I've got a few here that I'll rip off.
Can jump off or needs to be added to our player pool down here.
Sure. Carl Yuan, I'm not sure exactly how to speak. He's one that stands out to me. 116th in the world golf rankings. He's had some decent form coming in here. Let me pull that up.
Good tee to green.
Oh, really good tee to green. Like he's gained strokes in 4 straight events in off the tee and approach together. 1.7 strokes putting and 2.3 in 2 of his last 3. He comes in with a T35, T39, and then he opened up this year with a T21 at the Sony Open. So I'm willing to, and a lot of these guys, I don't think they're going to be super low owned. I think it's going to be fairly spread out. They're going to be a little bit higher than normal just because I think stars and scrubs is the way that people go. Kevin Yu, you mentioned, definitely back on him. The off the tee game has been really good. He's got that spike putting. He's either losing 4 or gaining 4. So I definitely like that. More of a GPP play, not someone I will, think about in cash. Juan is definitely someone, if you're going stars and scrubs and cash even, he's someone I would look at. Austin Eckroat stands out a little bit here. He had a really solid open to the year at the T12 at Sony Open, gaining strokes across the board, highlighted by 3 off the tee and 3 on putting. He's kind of been alternating on and off, I guess you could say, miscuts and high finishes. So he's kind of like a boom or bust to me in his rookie season here. So looking at Eckroat more as a GPP play. Andrew Landry going down the board, really GPP because the irons have been trashed, but he's a really good putter. And I believe if I just I thought I had him up here. Just give me just a couple seconds here. Yeah, he won here in 2020, T2 in 2018. So he had a good little stretch there from 2018 to 2020. Terrible form over the last 2 years, terrible form coming in. But he may be someone that I might try and mix in. Going down even lower, there's not really a whole bunch down here that I'm going to go to. I know you were on Eric Cole last week. He made the cut, kind of finished near the back. I think he may be, if you're looking to really, really punt down here, he may be one that you want to consider again. Andrew Novak was another one that stands out to me. He's been talked about quite a bit here. His tee to green game is starting to look really good. After losing 7 strokes in back-to-back events at the Rocket Mortgage in Wyndham in July and August, we don't have any data on the Bermuda, but he finished T17, so I'm assuming he putted well there at the Bermuda. I believe he did. The RSM, he missed the cut, but he only lost 0.7 strokes putting. And then the Sony, he finished T12 last week. He gained over 4 ball striking. He gained 4 strokes around the green, lost just shy of 2 putting. So he's a guy we're going to need a spike round from, but that's for his upside. I think for his floor, I think that's totally fine here. He's 81st in my model, T71, so he narrowly missed the cut here last year, but top 25s in 2 of his last 3 events. Very strong tee to green game. 6,400. I'm going to take a shot with him down here as well in my stars and scrubs.
Yeah, last guy I'll mention. I think you're definitely getting flop lag on him. Not good history here, but maybe it's like our rule. We have to go back, and it's at 7K flat is Robbie Shelton.
Yes.
Do we have to just plug our nose and play him again?
Pretend last week didn't happen?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even sure. I'm sure his stats look absolutely horrible, but it's one of those that everybody was on him for a reason. Last week, lost 2 on approach and off the tee in 2 rounds. First event in 2 months. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
He had such good form before that.
On this year or this week, and he was, 10 to 15 last week?
Yeah. He's going to be low owned for sure. And like the form going back to, even the Corn Ferry Tour at the end of his season there where he won twice, had some runner-up finishes, top 25 after top 25, and then he came onto the tour and it was top 25 in 3 of his first 4. He missed the cut at the Mayakoba. He bounced back somewhat, made the cut at the Houston with the T52, but then bounced back even further with the T10 at the RSM. So now he's back to that missed cut again. He's kind of got a reset. I think at these prices we can take a shot, and at the projected ownership, I'm thinking we don't got to take a whole lot of shots, to cover the field.
No. And I will mention one more. I said that was my last one, but back up in the low 7K, Nate Lashley, hit or miss form here. Very good, 18 and 19. And then the last 2 years that he withdrew in 20 apparently, but absolutely horrible the last 2 years. But if you look at his stats from last week,
really good at the Sony,
everywhere except putting, and he was pretty much flat there, finishing top 10.
Yep.
So I think he might get a little popular because of that, but I think he's not showing it right now.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of a spike. That was a spike round at the Sony for me, but it was really awesome to see that was his first event of the year, and he missed cuts in 3 of 4 to close out the end, the winter in November, October, November. So that was really good to see from him. So definitely I will have him on my my short list here to have a look at and dig in a little bit further. So one more thing I wanted to go over here. Actually, before I do that, I want to go on just a couple players that we talked about here. So I'm going to throw in Novak. I really liked him. Give me a 6K guy that who's your favorite 6K guy?
Favorite 6K guy? Probably you.
You? Okay, we're going to throw him in here. So we get 2 6K guys, and we're back up into that 77 average. So like you said, if you jam in another guy in the low 7s or the high 6s, I talked about Carl Juan. If you really want to go stars and scrubs, you can get right back up into that mid 8K range. I'm comfortable with all 3 of these guys. These don't seem like complete punts to me. That gets you up into Tom Hoagie, KH Lee, Adam Hadwin, who we talked about, gets you back up into that range. Or if you want,
you
can just kind of
play Ricky Fowler and I'm just saying Jason. Yeah. Never mind. You can't do that.
Fowler and Day. Hey, play the
I was going to say you could just play Fowler and Day, but I don't think you can.
That gets you back up into this range. I know a lot of people are on Patrick Rogers. He's been running hot. I talked about Keith Mitchell. If you want to just start coming down here, Dietrich, Chris Kirk. So there's a lot of options here, and definitely viable, like you said, jamming Scheffler and Rahm together. Grab 2 6K guys, and then you've really got options. You can go a third 6K guy and get up into the 8Ks, or 2 guys kind of in that mid 7K range. Even a mid 7K range is going to get you back into that low 8K range. So it's going to be a very popular build, jamming at least 2 of these top guys. I would say 9,500 and up. We're going to see a lot of lineups with 2 of those. And it's going to be hard to get into that balanced range just because of the win equity that a lot of guys give you. Now, with that said, this is an event where we've seen a lot of long shots come on here. So that's why another reason why I don't mind stars and scrubs. I don't think these 6K guys are kind of in that long shot winner, outright winner conversation at all. But we even getting past the outright winners, we see a lot of long shots in terms of top 20s, top 10s, and it goes, and you can see that clearly when we start looking at the cheat sheet and looking at all the course history. You scroll down the page, we see a lot of these top 25 spike rounds, 10 spike rounds from these 6K guys down all the way down to 6,000. So it's definitely a course where we can take those shots. So stars and scrubs is definitely on for me. Now, the last thing I wanted to go over here, we do have another new sponsor this week. It is Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's a little bit different. It combines traditional with some prop style daily fantasy. So what you do is you go in, you choose your contest right off the bat, you go to the contest lobby. I'm going to go into the $20 for golf here because you got 20, 2,000. So you got different ranges all the way down from $2 up to $2,000 contest. Choose your contest. There's 28 entries here. And then what they provide you is, I think, 10 or 12 different props. They provide you have to choose more or less. And then there is a points that is associated with more and a points that is associated with less. So obviously they think that Scheffler, more strokes than 68.5 is going to be the favorite. So you get less points for that. So that's maybe where you can find some of those edges. And so what you have to do in your lineup construction here is find 5 props that you like. So I'm just going to quickly rip through here. I'm going to go less on Tony Finau and think he has a really good round.
On the on Scotty.
Scheffler?
Yeah, what course is he playing? Is that round 1?
Right. So let's head over.
It's La Quinta, right?
I think, yes, all the top guys are on La Quinta. So 68.5, I kind of like less. I think he can go 67, 68 because it is a par 72. Yeah. So that's only 5 under.
That's a great play. If you're getting more points for the lower, and you're saying he's got to shoot
68 or better.
That is like, that would be the first one in for sure.
Right. So this is definitely an event where with Thrive, we can take advantage of some of these because it looks like they don't necessarily are factoring in which course the players are on. So I'm going to mix in, I'm going to get this Thrive Fantasy stuff inserted into the cheat sheet here eventually. I don't know if I'm going to get it done by this week, but it's going to be in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in. Birdie's 3.5. Zalatoris is on where? Let's open all the sheet back up. Zalatoris is on Nicklaus, so I'm going to maybe stay away from that. Xander on the pars. Rahm on the bogeys. We're going to go less, and it is the favorite, 85, and he's on the Quinta as well. Eagles and birdies for Cam Young. I'm going to go more. We need one more, and that's Cantley, pars and bogeys. We will go more on the pars and bogeys there. Strokes for Sam Burns. I'm going to go more. I believe he's on the stadium course, so he's on the tougher course. I don't think he's going to shoot 66. Let's just double check on Sam Burns here. Make sure. Do you see him on that list? There we go. Yeah, he's on the stadium course. So that's another easy one for me.
So that one,
although we're paying a lot. It's only
that one makes sense to me that they set it at 66.5 and are giving you way less to go over. But the Scotty one, good grief, that's like
I agree.
Whew.
So what you do is you make your favorite 5 picks, then you get what's called 2 ice picks. What those are is if some withdraws before they tee off, and it's after lock, your ice pick 1 will replace the guy that withdraws, and if a second guy withdraws, your ice pick 2 replaces him. That's what those are for. So You pick 5, pick 2 ice picks. So you pick your 7 best and you kind of rank them, make sure your top 5 are in there, your 2 ice picks in order, and then you go. And then you get points for getting all of these right. And then you're competing against other people for these prizes. So you get points for getting these right. And this is by round. This is just for round 1. Add up your points. Then you're in a contest, just like a traditional contest. Whoever has the most points, you start placing first down to 7th place. So it's very easy to do, only making 7 picks. And that is thrivefantasy.com. And if you want to sign up, we have a link below that you can click on and sign up. You will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. You can also use promo code Jagerbombs. All right, that wraps up this week's show. We've got the first multi-course event of the season. Unfortunately, while it's not our favorite, we're going to make the most of it. We're going to hammer the showdowns, everything in chat, so make sure to join us. Any parting words before we close this thing out?
No, let's bounce back this week.
All right. Good luck, everyone, and I'll see you in chat.